They're not all mortgage brokers can or will, and it's both. Some can and some won't, or some can and can't, and some are just unwilling. Some mortgage brokers will not write down a person's debt to income ratio, or DTI, even if a previous property is being paid, or if they sell sub 2, or they've got a lease, an active lease on it to show that there's income against the property. They don't have to do it right away. Some are not even allowed to, because there's a huge major super lender up here who has these broad set of requirements. And then as you get more and more niche down, they're like the end lender may or may not even have permission to write down the debt to income ratio on something like that, where it's a sub 2 sale, and you can at least show that there's a lease in place that that income will be covered. And so it's not like every broker is going to be okay with a prepayment of 2 months or 6 months rent or anything like that. They actually want 12 months of history, or they require 12 months of history. That could be company policy. So some people are just unwilling to play ball. Other people literally are not even allowed to do it. So it's not so much a question of how do I convince this guy to do it? And if that is like if you're trying to get that guy to do it, the question is, hey, are you allowed to write down debt to income ratio based on income against a property?
Okay.
If you're allowed to do it, then what are the rules? Tell me the rules. Show me the box that I have to fit inside of. If your requirement is a 12-month lease with at least 2 payments on it, how do we do that? Does it have to be seasoned for 2 months for real, or can I prepay 2 months? What counts? What's going to count in your mind? What's going to count for me to qualify for this so that this person can buy their next property? Because I'll be responsible for payments, but I just need to understand what's going to get this person qualified. If they don't sell this house outright and wipe out the debt, what is that? And if they say no, absolutely not, all that stuff, or I'm not even allowed to do that, you can ask to speak to a manager, but you're probably not going to get anywhere. I would say move on to the next lender, right?
Right.
Not everybody's willing to play ball, and so you got to find a different partner. And I have a guy who is okay with sub 2 sellers if their credit is 640s bare minimum, but they should have good credit already. And then he will accept a 1-year lease with evidence of 1 payment against it, is what he told me. And he can service most of the nation for traditional, conventional loans and the like,
Okay.
VA loans, et cetera. So the only thing he needs for the debt to income write down is that they have good credit and that they can show a 1-year lease with 1 payment against it. He's immediately ready to do it. But I spent some time educating him and training him on here's how sub 2 works for us. Sometimes we work with people who are ready to move on, and they can't get the most money out of their house unless they sell it sub 2 to us. So I would say you're talking to the wrong person. If the broker's unwilling or unable to do it, you just got to go to the next person. And people don't like to hear that because they've already built a relationship. They've already filled out the forms. They've already done this. They've already blah, 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 blah. Sorry. If you want to do it this way, you're going to have to find somebody who's willing to help you out.
Yeah. This client, unfortunately, or the seller, she's actually already signed paperwork to have a realtor involved, which is taking some of her proceeds as well, because she's almost upside down, which I was surprised that the realtor would even take her on, knowing that how slim the margin is. So.
Realtors going to get paid. What do they care? People pay to sell houses. That's real estate. People pay to sell houses, and realtors are the ones that get paid. How slim is you don't even know how slim the realtor's life is. They might be
right, yeah,
sucking on dried beans for food on a daily basis right now, and they'll take anything they can get.
And just like with our stuff, sometimes the buyer winds up paying all the closing costs and the commissions and all that.
Yeah, and the buyer is my client that I'm working with. Is trying to get her the most, because she's not getting any activity on the house for the sales price that they have listed at. So they want to take it over subject to and give her that she's bought into it. So that's all.
Yep.
So when in that video, do you remember Pace goes, it was a fake lease? Like, was it really a fake lease?
So for me, here's
What
the other thing.
makes it fake versus real?
The intention behind it is to deceive another person into providing financing based on false information. So I would not do that. What I would suggest is you enter into a real lease between the new owner, who is the property manager, legitimately. Is this going to be a primary residence? is it going to be owned by an LLC? By an individual?
Not today. We could probably change the paperwork and he has an LLC.
Number one, if you have the opportunity to buy a property in an LLC that does not have your name attached to it, I would do that any day, especially on a sub-2 transaction. So let's just assume that's the case. Let's assume we can make that happen. And the LLC is now the buyer. Now the LLC, not having a crazy name like something Property Acquisitions Masters, because they're going to be the long-term owner of a sub-2 property. So let's pick a low and slow name, right? Something like something Property Management or Property Solutions.
I think it's Mission Investments.
Investments is not a good owner name. It will work, but I would pick something. If you have the option, I would do that. That said, I'm putting something together here. You're going to buy it in an LLC, who is then going to lease it to the owner occupant. This is the owner, and the individual is the occupant. But if that person wants to move on, now their property is owned in an LLC. You just can't take depreciation against an asset that's your primary residence. So it's not like you can take depreciation, even though an LLC owns it. That's okay. When you move out, you can start doing depreciation though. So if you can have an entity own your property and not you, great. Then you live in it and you move out whenever you want to, and then you can continue renting it out or sell it or whatever you want to do. But you can set up a legitimate lease between the company who owns the property and you as an individual. And that's a legitimate lease. And if both parties, because you and the company are two separate entities as far as legally is concerned, you can sign a mutual release of that lease if you decide to rent it out to somebody else or something like that. Or you can give unlimited subleasing capabilities to the tenant. So in a case where somebody wants to turn a property into an Airbnb, they buy it in an LLC, that's the hold, and then they lease it to their operating LLC, who then has the rights to sublease it as an Airbnb. And now you have a long-term lease, which the lender is that's the only thing the lender cares about. I need to see a long-term lease between the owner and the occupant. So that's what I'm saying is you can, once you know the rules to play by, you can structure the paperwork to fit.
Okay. Yep. Cool.